Welcome back, seekers of wisdom, to day 21 of our 30-day Wisdom Quest Challenge. In our last session, we explored the immense and formidable power of self-discipline, the quiet art of becoming the architect of your own life by laying the stones of habit and focus, day after patient day. We learned that to construct the life we envision, we must show up and do the work. But today, we must ask a more fundamental and perhaps more frightening question. What if the blueprint we are using is too small? What if the very ground upon which we are building is enclosed by invisible walls we don't even know are there? What if the life we are so diligently building is, in fact, being constructed inside a cage? Today, we journey inward into the very architecture of the mind itself. We will explore the unseen barriers that hold us back, the quiet, persuasive, and often subconscious stories we tell ourselves that define the absolute boundaries of our potential. This session is about learning to see those invisible walls, to test their strength, and to discover that we hold the hammer to shatter them. We are here to learn about overcoming limiting beliefs, rewiring your mind for success. We will tell a story about a city of beautiful, tiny gardens and a strange traveler who arrived with a hammer and a polishing cloth, offering a truth that was both terrifying and liberating. The walls are not real. Imagine for a moment a magnificent eagle, born and raised inside a vast, enclosed aviary. The dome of the aviary is a masterpiece of engineering, a clear, seamless material that is, from the inside, completely invisible to the eagle's powerful eyes. The eagle has everything it needs within this enclosure. Food is provided, water is clean, and there is a safe place to perch, sheltered from storms. It has mighty wings, a powerful heart, and the genetic inheritance of soaring through open skies. It can hop, it can run, and it can even fly for short, impressive distances from one side of its world to the other. But it never soars. It never catches a thermal and circles for hours, a tiny speck in the vast, blue emptiness of the sky. Why? Because every time its instinct urges it to fly higher, it bumps its head on the invisible ceiling it does not know is there. After a few painful, confusing collisions, the eagle learns its lesson. It concludes, based on its direct and repeated experience, that this is the nature of reality. Flight is limited to a certain measurable height. Its world is safe, predictable, and small. This eagle is living within the confines of a powerful limiting belief. The cage is external, but the acceptance of the cage, the belief in the ceiling, has become internal. Our minds, in many ways, are like this eagle. We are born with immense potential, with wings to soar through any sky we can imagine. But we are raised in a world that, often with the best of intentions, installs invisible ceilings above our heads. Our story takes place in a quiet, orderly, and peculiar city called Estria, the city of measured gardens. It was a city of serene beauty and profound, unacknowledged sadness. At the moment of their birth, every citizen of Estria was granted a plot of land, a personal garden that was to be their world, their work, and their identity. From their earliest memories, the citizens tended their plots with immense dedication, cultivating beautiful flowers, sturdy vegetables, and manicured lawns. But every garden, without exception, was enclosed by high, thick, seamless walls made of a strange, murky, gray glass. From the inside, looking out, the walls did not appear to be glass. They looked like the end of the world itself, a solid, gray, and absolute horizon. It was simply an unquestioned fact of reality that the world was the size of your garden. The community's entire culture was built around this fundamental assumption. Their songs were about the beauty of tending the soil within the walls. Their art depicted the intricate floral patterns of their enclosed spaces, and their philosophies were complex treatises on finding contentment within one's given lot. The walls were their limiting beliefs, made manifest and reinforced by generations of shared experience. In this city lived a young man named Elian. By the standards of Estria, he was a great success. He was a gifted gardener. His plot was a masterpiece of order and beauty. His roses were more vibrant, his vegetables more robust, his lawn more perfectly edged than any of his neighbors. He was respected for his skill, and many would come to the edge of his wall to admire his work. But despite his success within his measured garden, he felt a strange, unnamed sense of confinement, a quiet melancholy he could not explain. He would often find himself standing at the edge of his garden, his hands dirty with the soil he knew so well, staring at the dull gray wall that defined his existence. He would look up at the vast, open sky above, a sky that seemed to have no walls at all, and a deep, instinctual curiosity would stir in his heart. What was on the other side? Was there more to the world than this? Was this all he was meant to be? But this flicker of curiosity, this spark of a larger potential, was always quickly extinguished by the powerful, familiar voice of his own self-talk. "This is all there is," the voice would say, a voice that sounded suspiciously like his father's and his grandfather's before that. "Be grateful for the beautiful garden you have. To want more is foolish and greedy. It is the path to unhappiness. No one has ever gone beyond the wall. It is not possible. This is your reality." The beliefs of his community reinforced this internal narrative. When he once voiced a quiet question about the nature of the walls to a neighbor, the neighbor had looked at him with fear and suspicion. "Do not speak of such things," the neighbor had warned. "To question the walls is to invite chaos." And so, Elian would turn away from the wall, his curiosity smothered by fear and conformity, and he would go back to tending his familiar, predictable, and safe patch of earth. The impact of his limiting beliefs on his potential was absolute. He could not even conceive of a life beyond them. The conflict of our story, then, was not a grand external battle. It was Elian's quiet, internal struggle, the growing dissonance between the boundless curiosity of his spirit and the deeply ingrained, culturally reinforced belief that his world was finite. One day, the city's unchangeable routine was disrupted. A stranger arrived in Estria, an old woman unlike anyone they had ever seen. She carried no gardening tools. She had no plot of her own. Her clothes were woven from strange fibers and colored with pigments that did not exist in their gardens. She simply carried a small, strange-looking hammer and a soft, clean polishing cloth. She was a traveler, and her eyes, ancient and clear, held a wisdom that seemed to see not just the gardens, but the walls themselves. Her very presence was a quiet challenge to the city's entire way of being. The traveler walked through the city, observing the citizens as they worked within their walled worlds. She saw their skill, their diligence, and the quiet sadness in the eyes of many, the same sadness she saw in Elian. She eventually came to the wall of Elian's garden. She watched him for a long time as he meticulously pruned the rose bush, his movements precise and practiced, yet lacking in true joy. "Your garden is beautiful," she said, her voice clear and kind, startling him. "You have cultivated this small space with great love. But tell me, why do you keep it so small?" Elian looked up, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Small? It is not small. It is my garden. This is all the space there is." He gestured with his pruning shears to the great, gray wall at his back, the unquestionable limit of his world. The traveler smiled a gentle, knowing smile, a smile that seemed to hold both immense compassion and a hint of mischief. "That," she said, pointing at the wall with a steady finger, "is the greatest and most powerful lie you have ever been told." This was the beginning of Elian's profound and terrifying personal growth. The traveler sat with him by his wall, and for the first time, someone spoke of the walls not as a feature of the world, but as a feature of the mind. "These walls," she began, "are not made of stone or mortar. They are made of stories. They are the limiting beliefs that define your world. They are built, piece by piece, from the moment you are born. A parent, trying to keep you safe from a fall, tells you, don't climb too high. That is a small, nearly invisible pane of glass placed above your head. A teacher, trying to be realistic about your future, tells you, you are not very good at math. Perhaps you should focus on gardening. That is another pane of glass placed to your left. You try something new as a child and fail, and the story you tell yourself is, I am not a capable or brave person. That is a large, thick pane of glass you place to your right with your own hands. Over time, these individual panes, these moments of instruction and conclusion, fuse together. The dust and grime of years of unexamined repetition accumulate, and the once clear glass becomes a murky, opaque, and seemingly solid wall. You forget it is made of individual, transparent stories, and you come to believe it is a solid, impenetrable barrier. You come to believe it is reality. This, she said, her voice soft but firm, is how limiting beliefs form. She then offered Elian a gift. It was a simple, soft polishing cloth, woven from a material he had never seen before. This cloth is the tool of self-awareness, she explained. It represents the courage to question, to look closely at what you have always taken for granted. I want you to take it and rub a single spot on your wall right here. Do not think, just polish. Elian, though deeply skeptical and afraid of the sacrilege, was compelled by the woman's strange certainty. He took the cloth. It was softer than anything he had ever felt. He turned to the wall and began to rub a section at eye level. At first, nothing happened. The wall remained gray and solid. The traveler nodded for him to continue. He rubbed with more intention, more focus, pouring his quiet frustration and his flicker of hope into the motion. And then a strange thing occurred. The murky, gray surface began to thin. It became translucent, like smoky quartz. And then, miraculously, it became transparent. For the first time in his life, he was not looking at the wall, but through it. And on the other side, though blurry and distorted, he could see something, vague shapes, colors he had never seen before, the deep green of a pine forest, the blue of a distant mountain, the indistinct form of a great open field. He gasped and stumbled backward, his heart pounding in his chest. The world was larger than his garden. You see, the traveler said softly, the belief only seems solid because you have never polished it with your focused attention. You have never questioned it. You have never cleaned away the grime of unquestioned acceptance. Next, she gave him another tool, a small silver tuning fork. This is the tool of the new story, she said. The old story your wall tells you every day is, this is the limit. You are safe here. Do not venture out. We must challenge that story with a new, more powerful vibration. The old negative self-talk must be replaced with a new, empowering one. In some traditions, this is the power of affirmations. Hold a new story in your heart, a story of what you saw through the glass, a story of possibility. For you, perhaps the story is, my potential is as vast as the fields beyond this wall. Hold that thought, feel its truth, and strike the fork. Elian, his heart still racing from his discovery, took the tuning fork. He held the image of the great, open field in his mind. He whispered the words, my potential is as vast as the fields beyond this wall, and tapped the tuning fork against a stone. It let out a pure, clear, resonant note that seemed to fill the air. He touched its vibrating base to the pane of glass he had polished. The pane hummed with the same frequency, and as it did, the view through it became clearer, the distortions lessening. He could now see that the field was dotted with great, towering pine trees. Their scent of fragrance he could almost, but not quite, perceive. The new belief was literally clarifying his vision. Finally, the traveler presented him with the small hammer. It was beautifully crafted from ironwood, heavy for its size. This is the final tool, she said, her voice now serious. This is the tool of the conscious challenge. The cloth allows you to see the belief. The tuning fork allows you to weaken it with a new truth. But the hammer is what empowers you to shatter it. This is the art of cognitive reframing the active, conscious act of taking a limiting belief that you have identified and breaking it apart with evidence, with logic, and with a new, more empowering belief that you have chosen for yourself. The wall is not solid stone. It is brittle glass. But only you can swing the hammer. It is your wall, built from your own stories, and only you have the power to bring it down. The climax of Elian's story was not a battle with a dragon or a monster. It was a silent internal battle with the deepest foundations of his own reality, waged in the quiet of his own beautiful small garden. He stood before the now transparent section of his wall, the ironwood hammer heavy and real in his hand. He could see the world beyond the vast fields, the towering trees, the distant blue-hued mountains. It was a world of infinite space, of limitless potential, and yet he was terrified. The garden was all he had ever known. It was safe. It was predictable. His entire identity, his very sense of self, was Elian, the good gardener of this plot. Who would he be in that vast, unknown world? His old self-talk, the voice of the wall itself, the voice of generations of his ancestors, rose up in a cacophony of fear. "It's an illusion," it whispered, a cold hiss in his mind. "A trick of the light. There's nothing out there but danger and chaos. You'll fail. You'll be lost. You're just a gardener. You don't have the skills for that world. Stay where you are safe. Stay where you belong." It was the voice of the comfortable cage, a song of safety that was also a song of limitation. But then he looked at the polished pane of glass, at the vision of the world beyond. He held the silver tuning fork and remembered the traveler's words. He struck it again, this time speaking the new story not in a whisper, but in a clear, firm voice. "My potential is as vast as the fields beyond this wall. I am more than just this garden. I am a child of the whole world." He pressed the vibrating fork to the glass, and a network of tiny, beautiful, star-like cracks appeared, spreading from the point of contact. He took a deep breath. He held the hammer, the tool of the conscious challenge. He thought of all the years he had felt that quiet, unnamed sadness, that sense of being confined. He chose in that moment to believe that the longing in his own heart was a more trustworthy guide than the fearful stories he had been told. He raised the hammer high. This was his moment of active, cognitive reframing. He was not just breaking glass. He was breaking a deeply ingrained pattern of thought that had been passed down for generations. He was choosing a new belief. He swung. The wall did not shatter with a violent, angry explosion. Instead, the moment the hammer struck the weakened pane, a beautiful musical chime echoed through the garden. A brilliant white light erupted from the point of impact, and the entire wall, from one end of his garden to the other, dissolved into a cascade of shimmering, harmless motes of light, which then drifted up into the sky and vanished. The air that rushed in was fresh and alive, filled with the scent of pine and distant rain, a scent of a larger world. Elian stood, blinking in the sudden, vast openness, the hammer still in his hand. He took a tentative step, and then another, his worn gardening boots touching the wild, untamed grass for the first time. The world was larger, more vibrant, and more beautiful than his mind could have ever conceived. He looked back and saw his garden, no longer a world, but a small, neat, beautiful square in a vast, open landscape. He saw that the walls of his neighbor's garden still stood, and from the outside, they looked exactly like what they were, strange, murky, self-imposed glass boxes. His potential was not the size of the plot he had been given at birth. It was the size of the horizon. He turned to the traveler, who was watching him with her serene smile. "The walls, they were never really solid," he said, a sense of profound awe in his voice. "No," she said. "They were just beliefs, hardened by time and a lack of questioning. And beliefs, no matter how solid they seem, can be rewired. Your mind is not made of stone, Elian. It is a living thing, like your garden. It can grow new pathways. It can tear down old walls and build new, more expansive gardens. This ability to change the very structure of your mind through new thoughts, new beliefs, and new actions is your greatest gift. In your world, they are beginning to understand this through science. They call it neuroplasticity, but it is an ancient magic that every human being possesses. The resolution of our story shows Elian not abandoning his garden, but expanding it. He began to cultivate the wild land around his old plot, discovering new plants, new challenges, and a new, deeper joy that came not from safety, but from exploration. He had not lost his old identity. He had expanded it. He was still a gardener, but now he was a gardener of a limitless world. But more than that, he became a quiet inspiration. His neighbors, seeing him living in a world without walls, were at first fearful, then curious. One by one, they would come to the edge of their own gardens and look at his, a silent question in their eyes. Elian would not give them answers or try to smash their walls for them. He would simply walk over, smile, and hand them a polishing cloth, a tuning fork, and a small ironwood hammer. He would offer them the tools, for he had learned the alchemist's lesson from our previous story. The wisdom is not in being given the gold, but in learning the process of forging it for oneself. He had started a quiet revolution of the mindset, a gentle shattering of invisible walls, one garden at a time, paving the way for a city of limitless success and boundless personal growth. And so, the garden became a memory. A cherished memory, yes, but no longer a boundary. Elian, once a master of confined beauty, had become something else entirely. A cartographer of the unknown, a mapmaker of the mind. He spent his days walking the lands beyond the wall, not conquering them, not possessing them, but listening to them. The forests spoke in whispers. The rivers carried riddles. The wind told stories of other lands, other minds, other seekers still behind glass. Everywhere he went, he found signs of old walls, not always visible, but present in the way people spoke, the way they held themselves, the way they flinched at the edge of change. These were not physical structures anymore. They were habits. They were unquestioned routines. They were stories spoken, so often they had become invisible commands. But Elian did not fight these walls with fire. He brought stillness. He brought presence. He brought questions, not answers. And above all, he brought tools. Tools that had once seemed so strange, so humble. A cloth, a fork, a hammer. Sometimes someone would ask him, why tools? Why not give people a vision, a revelation, a truth so powerful that it breaks the wall immediately? He would smile, a knowing and quiet smile. Because truth must be discovered to be believed, he would say. If I hand you the sky, it will feel too big. But if I give you a way to clean your lens, to test your sound, to strike against your own illusions, then you will find the sky for yourself. And then you will never forget it. In time, Elian built not just a school, but a sanctuary, a circular grove, where the wild met the cultivated, where old gardeners and new seekers gathered in shared practice. They came not just to learn how to break walls, but how to live after the shattering, how to walk through life with a mind that stayed soft, expansive, and awake. They learned that a polished wall may return when fear does, but so can the cloth. A new story must be tuned again and again, especially when the old one comes back dressed in new clothes. A wall, once broken, may leave echoes in the nervous system. Healing is not instantaneous. Freedom takes integration. And perhaps most importantly, not all walls are bad. Some are necessary at times, but no wall should ever go unexamined. No belief should ever live forever by default. Elian taught the paradox of wisdom, that true growth is both radical and gentle, that you do not destroy your past, you compost it, that you do not reject your roots, you expand your soil, that your old garden, once a cage, could now become a sanctuary, a starting point, not a cell. And so he lived, not as a prophet, not as a hero, but as a guide, gardener of the mind's terrain. As the years passed, Elian's name became a quiet legend, not just in Estria, but in villages and cities far beyond. Travelers came seeking him, bearing questions of their own. And always he would listen first, then offer tools, then walk beside them, never ahead. He became not a leader of people, but a revealer of inner leaders, those who had, all along, the power to reshape their own reality. On his final day, a day not marked by pain or fear, but by peace, Elian sat once more on the bench beneath the open sky. Around him bloomed hundreds of different gardens, none the same, all alive with wildness and design. There were no walls, only trellises, arches, paths, beauty coexisting with openness. A great-grandchild approached him, child born into the post-wall world, and asked the question that would echo for generations. Was it hard to break the wall? Elian, now aged and radiant with inner peace, looked up at the ever-changing sky. He smiled. It was the hardest thing I ever did, he said, and the most necessary, not because the wall was strong, but because my belief in it was. Then, gently, he placed the 3 tools into the child's hands, not as relics, as inheritance. And as the sun dipped low behind the distant mountains, those very mountains he once thought were myths, the sky flared gold and violet. And in that sky, in that light, one could almost hear a distant ringing, the echo of a tuning fork, struck by the courage of a single heart ready to believe again. Reflection question for day 21. Where in your life have you mistaken safety for truth? What belief are you still living inside, simply because you haven't dared to polish it? Affirmation for today: I am not my old stories. I am the author of new possibilities. Closing wisdom for the day: the walls of your mind are not made of stone. They are made of sentences. And sentences can be rewritten. You are not just the gardener of your life. You are the cartographer of your potential, the storyteller of your future, the alchemist of your limitations. And if today you have taken even one small stroke with the cloth, even one small note of the tuning fork, even one quiet lift of the hammer, then you, dear seeker, are no longer just inside the quest. You are the quest, and day 22 awaits.